So we took the previous job history, which just showed these list views of when these jobs started, but it didn't really show a good graphical representation of when these jobs were truly starting. Sure, you could look at the data and you could see that these jobs, let's see right here. So all these jobs are starting at 10:45. But if you have, say, 100 jobs on a single SQL server, it can be hard to find all those jobs that are starting at the exact same time and what's actually happening in all of them, reading the outcomes and whatnot. So we put this all into a 24-hour view where you can see the start time of each job and how long it lasted. So each of these small bars represents jobs that took maybe a few seconds to run, and they're running every, let's see, this one's running every 10 minutes. Yep, every 10 minutes if I'm reading that right. And then these bigger bars are this do work job. This one's actually a bunch of single jobs that is just running over and over and over again. But do work 2, this one's starting at 11:54 p.m. and ending at 2:54 a.m. So we can see that this job is a long running job, which helps us show any of that contention that we were talking about previously. If jobs are running and overlapping at the same time, or they're starting at the same time, there might be some resource contention there.
Yep. So on that chart then, Mitch, for old guys like me whose vision is not as great as they were when they were your age, can we zoom in on that to maybe blow that up a little bit?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of handy resource views, or a bunch of ways to view the chart. So if you hold control and scroll in on the chart, it'll start expanding it. And if you noticed up at the top here, it added an extra half an hour marker. So that way you can see these start and stop times a little bit easier. But we can zoom in and we can look at everything that happened at midnight, and we see these 4 jobs. So every 15 minutes is when this job is starting. One other thing that I didn't cover, if you look at the top bar here, it says 9% and then it has a little blue color. What this relates to is actually the current CPU usage for that hour. It was the average CPU usage during that hour. So it's nothing super fancy here, but we saw all the way throughout today, we've had 9% of the CPU load by hour, which also correlates to the CPU load by hour instance report.
Yep. So that's super handy. I mean, frankly, it's kind of boring on this server because this is our test server. But on a server that has real load, where you've got certain hours that the CPU spikes and other hours that the CPU is more available, you can use this to see which jobs are running during those high CPU or low CPU times, and maybe consider shifting your jobs around a little bit based off of when they run and that CPU utilization there.
Yeah, and we've already actually used this to see for clients that have had jobs that are overlapping and some resources that are overlapping. We've looked at it and we've seen their CPU is just spiking during these times. And we've been able to make recommendations of shuffling jobs around, changing the start times so that that CPU load is a little more even throughout the day. And in turn, creates less blocking, less locking, everything on their systems.
And then the other thing that's kind of handy with this one, if you right click on that chart, you can copy the chart to the clipboard as an image.
Yep, and it copies everything, all the headers, and then if it's a long chart such as this one, it will copy every single job and all of its information all the way down.
I did one that was like 20,000 pixels wide when I copied it because I had it zoomed to that level. And it was really handy because I took it and put it into an image editor and then kind of zoomed in on the specific one I wanted and copied and pasted it to tell the client about it. So definitely a handy way of analyzing what's going on with different jobs there.
For sure. And then beyond just the current 24-hour view, we've also added the yesterday's view. So you're able to look back into what happened in the past 24 hours as well.
So can we go back like 30 weeks or the whole year or anything like that with this?
So we don't have the ability to go back that far because it's all coming from the SQL Server Agent job log, and that is oftentimes cleaned out after a few days. But that is, correct me if I'm wrong, that is a setting that the user can change as to how long that retention period is.
Yes, and yeah, absolutely. And that's one of those things that usually when we're doing a performance assessment and those kind of things, we try and limit that so you don't have like tens of millions of rows showing up in MSDB to track your job history. So why don't we? I can jump in and show more of that now, unless you have more to show here, Mitch.
I think that's a pretty good overview of what we have here.